everyone, this is Justin from BlackboxMyCar here with the FineVu T9. Just wanted to introduce this device to you. It's one of our entry-level 2-channel systems, and it's a really popular device in Korea because you've got the true parking mode by motion detection. It's a really small device, pretty low profile, not too flashy. It doesn't have too many features on it. Got the HD video on the front, VGA recording on the rear. And as you can see, we have one cable going from the front to the back, and there's two types of power cables supplied with this. Right now we have it on our desk with the power inverter. This is using the cigarette power cable, but if you do want to take advantage of parking mode by motion detection, you'll need to use the direct hardwire cable. And the direct hardwire cable has a red and yellow wire. Yellow is going to be your constant wire, red is going to be your accessory. This wire is going to let you use the parking mode by motion detection because it'll tell the camera when you turn off your car, and then it will switch over to the parking mode. But like I said, you can just use the cigarette cable if you only want to record while driving. But it's a good idea to take advantage of that feature. Going around to the back of the device, it's a pretty simple interface. Oh, just triggered the G sensor. So that's one of the features. It has a G sensor in there, so if you hit a big bump in the road, get into an accident, have to slam on your brakes, anything like that, G sensor might get triggered and it's going to tag that as an event. Another way you can tag a video as an event is if you hit the record button on the left side, and that's going to be an emergency recording. It's going to record a 1-minute file, and it's going to back up into a separate folder on the memory card. So we have a few lights. There's 4 LEDs in total. Top right one or top left one we're not actually using. It's a GPS one. There is a port for GPS, but we don't actually carry the GPS module for this device. Rear camera is on, you can tell because the blue LED is there. And then we have the recording light, which is blinking on the bottom left there. And we also have the voice recording, so that's the red light on the right side. If you want to turn off the mic, for example, you can just hit the button and it turns off right away. Stop voice recording. And very responsive. There we go. On the left side of the device, we have the micro SD card slot. And then on the top, we have our mount. So it's an adhesive mount. We always like adhesive mounts because it's better under, it's not going to fall off if you get into an accident. And there's also a quick release to this. So if you don't want to leave all this in your car, you can detach it. Just lift the tab there and it comes off. So you can unplug this. Don't have to worry about it getting stolen. Rear one, you can't do that. Rear, there is a security LED there. And on the front one, we have a security LED right there. Also on the rear camera, this is pretty unique to the FineVu T9, which is you can choose between normal recording on the rear camera or mirrored recording. But whatever your preference is, you have that option right on the T9. And it's a physical switch there. So one of the questions we get with this device is, how do you actually set it up? How do I change the time on it? There's no buttons. Well, there's 2 buttons there, but they're really simple. They don't do too much. And there's no screen on there. You can't really navigate anything. And there's no Wi-Fi app. So the way you set it up is you basically turn off the device and you want to take out the memory card. It comes free with a 16 gigabyte card right there. And once you've taken the card out, just insert it into your computer and we can do the setup. But basically, once you insert the card into your computer, we have the user manual here. So there's no printed version of this. Now, if you've misplaced this, you can get it back if you just put the card back into the camera and restart it. It's going to load these files back on. So from our website, you just want to scroll all the way down, and you'll see a tab called Firmware Download. And in Firmware Download, you'll see FineVu here. FineVu, the English viewer for T9. So you need to download this to set up your T9. And if you download it, it just goes to our Dropbox. You can download this program. And there's also the English manual for T9. This is the same one found on the SD card, but in case you want to look it over maybe before you purchase the device, or if you've misplaced that file, you can get it here as well. Once you download the viewer from our website, you'll get this little zip file, and you just need to extract it. And from here, you want to choose the FineVu T9 Windows installer there, and just go through the steps there. Once you've installed the viewer, it should be on your desktop, It's a really small file. Locate your drive E or your SD card drive. And from here, it's going to organize all your videos into the different times and the different types. So normal mode, event mode, camcorder. Normal is just your regular driving. Event is if your G sensor was triggered. And camcorder is if you hit the button. It says manual there. And motion is going to be your parking mode footage. But right now we don't have any motion videos. So that's why it's grayed out. If you go into an event video though, one cool thing is you can watch the G sensor. And so it will show you exactly at which point the G sensor was triggered. So that's when I picked up the device and that shook the device, and so it tagged it as an event. So that's how the G sensor works. Next thing we want to do is we're going to go into settings. And again, you want to locate your drive that has the SD card. So for us, it's the E drive. And these are all the default settings. So you can change the sensitivity of the G sensor. If you find that there's too much event footage, you can turn this down to insensitive or very insensitive. There's no way to disable this altogether. So if you do have a bumpy ride, you will still get some event footage now and then. Time setting, you want to apply it. And typically I would set this a few minutes ahead. The reason why is the SD card doesn't actually keep track of time. So if you set it at say 220 right here, and you take 5 minutes to get back to your car and power on the device, then there's going to be a delay there. So you'll still be a few minutes off, but typically I set it ahead of time. That way I can get closer to the accurate time. Security LED setting, or it's spelled wrong here, security. That's going to be the LED on the front of the device. You can turn it off there. We have your battery cutoff. So there's two ways the device can cut off voltage. We can do the cutoff voltage here. If you set it lower, you'll record for longer, but you're also running your battery down a bit more. So with smaller engine cars, we can use something like 11.8 volts. I don't recommend these for big V8 engines or high output engines. And cutoff time. So this is going to cut off your camera recording regardless of what your battery level is at. So it's whichever comes first. Default is 12 hours, which is pretty good for most newer cars. If you don't want to run it down so much, you can do 6 hours. Audio setting, audio status, voice recording is on by default. If you want to disable voice recording, you can do so. And volume, I like to turn this down to low, just because I find the bonging pretty annoying. When you hit a bump, it goes ding dong. And also we have your announcements, and it says the FineVu greeting message, those kind of things. You can lower the volume there. You can even mute it altogether, so if someone gets in your car, they're not going to hear it go off. And this is a temperature cutoff, so if it hits 70 degrees Celsius, you can turn it off to protect the SD card, protects the camera. Memory assignment, so this is the most complex one. It's kind of unique to the FineVu viewer. BlackVu devices don't have this feature. So what this does is it distributes your SD card space. So with a 16 gig card, we have about 15 gigs of storage. So by default, 40% of that storage is dedicated for normal driving mode footage. We have 10% for event, 30% for motion, 10% for camcorder. You can play around with this. Generally, I like to leave the normal mode a little bit lower because if something happens in normal mode, you can always tag it as a camcorder just by hitting the button. Or if your G sensor was triggered, say you had to slam on your brakes, someone cut you off, or if you got into an accident, that would get put into the event folder. And regardless, if something did happen, it didn't go into either folder, you can easily unplug the camera, and that way you can avoid it being overwritten. But the cool thing is, these folders will only write independently. So basically, in a normal mode footage, no matter how much you drive, it's not going to overwrite your event file or your motion file, and only other event files can overwrite an event file. It's a little bit complex, I understand, but it's a really cool feature, and it's pretty exclusive to some higher-end Korean devices, so it's nice that we can see it at this price point. After everything is done, you just click Save, and put the card back into your camera, and you're good to go. So we'll just plug the card back in, and power it on. And you can see now the LED, we've turned it off and it's not on anymore. And also the bonging we can hear is a little bit quieter. So that's how you can set up your FineVu T9. So yeah, that's how you set up your FineVu T9. Really good device, great value, has everything you really need. You know, we can always go with a higher video resolution, something like that. So actually, even with the lower resolution, it's recording fairly decent video, and it's usually going to be enough for any kind of insurance claim. It's not necessary to spend more than double of this for a higher end 2-channel Korean device when you can have about, I would say, 75-80% of the functionality for half the price.